everyone, welcome back. So today I'm going to be talking about my first research experience that I did in Green Bank, West Virginia at the Green Bank Observatory. So as I mentioned, this video is going to be about my research experience for undergraduates, or REU, in Green Bank, West Virginia. So this video is going to be split up into 3 parts. The first part is kind of just going to be facts about Green Bank and what a perspective of someone driving through the town or only there for a day might be. Then the second portion of this video is going to be about what it was like to live there for 10 weeks. And of course, that's not the full perspective or the full story of people who live there, but 10 weeks was a pretty significant chunk of time. And so I definitely have a very different perspective from the first day of arriving in Green Bank to my last day leaving. And then the final section of the video is going to be about the actual science part of my REU, kind of more about what it was like to work at the observatory and the actual research experience, and not so much the location of the research experience. So to start off with, Green Bank is a very small town in rural West Virginia with a population of about 143 people as of the 2010 census. And Green Bank, West Virginia is in a section of land called the National Radio Quiet Zone, or NRQZ, as you'll sometimes see it written. And essentially what the National Radio Quiet Zone is this section of land in West Virginia, Virginia, and Maryland that has rules, regulations, and laws in order to ensure that both Green Bank Observatory and Sugar Grove Station can do the science and the work that they need to do effectively and efficiently without RFI, or radio frequency interference. And so what this looks like is regulations on any radio emitting device. And so that can be anything from cell phones to cell towers to radio stations to microwaves to basically anything electric. And so that really dictates what can be done in Green Bank and the surrounding towns and regions. And so when I first got to Green Bank, it was, first of all, a long drive. I came from my home in New York, and it took us about 8 hours to get there. And so it was a very long car ride. We weren't sure where we were going to begin with. We had never been to Green Bank before. And then about an hour outside of Green Bank is when cell service cut off for us. I'm sure depending on which direction you come in from, it might be, 30 minutes to an hour and 30 minutes, but for us it was right around the hour mark. And cell service cut out. Luckily, once you start a GPS, it keeps going. And so we were able to make it in to the town. We stayed in a hotel actually the night before because we weren't sure how late we were going to arrive in Green Bank. And so we stayed in a hotel the night before. We stayed an hour outside of Green Bank, in the closest town, city we could find. And the next morning we drove in. Now, driving into Green Bank was different than I had expected. I knew that it was a small town, and I knew that there wasn't going to be a lot of people or obviously a lot of shops or anything to accommodate such a small group of people. But I didn't really realize going in that it was kind of just like forest with little towns speckled amongst it. Around me, where I've always lived in these suburban areas, you kind of just blend from one town to another. There's just houses and then more houses, and somewhere in there the town changes. Or shops and more shops, and somewhere in there the town changes. This was kind of like a grouping of 10 homes along a mile stretch of road, and then nothing for 5 miles, and then another grouping, and then nothing for 10 miles. And so that's kind of when it really hit me how super secluded I was going to be. And so we had gotten a map beforehand of the town and basic things that we would need to know. And so right at the corner of the road that I lived on, there was a general store / gas station. It had just a couple of random odd and end things that you could get there. It was by no means a grocery store, but if you, like a Walmart, like a super center. But if you needed anything from a box of pastas to some coffee to some Spam, that was all there, and the people were actually really great, and they would go out and buy meats and produce and stock that regularly. So again, it wasn't a lot. If you were looking for something really specific, they might not have it, but it was great for those like odd and end things that you're like, oh, if I just had a lemon, I could make this dish. And so that was really, really something to see, was like a general store. You see them in movies. I had seen them out west, but when we had gone out west, we had gone to like touristy cities. And so I had seen them in a touristy town. I had never seen one that wasn't meant for thousands of people to walk through its doors every day, but for 10 people to walk through its doors every day. And so that was kind of crazy. We drove up to the house. I unpacked and everything, and my family and I were just kind of walking around, seeing what there was to see, what there was to do. And the Green Bank Observatory actually has a science center in it. And while we were there, we were talking to people who both work there and also live in the community, and then people who obviously do both. And we met some really incredible people just that first day. And one of the people that we met is someone who refers to themselves as EM sensitive, or electromagnetic sensitive. And essentially what that means is they feel that being around electric devices is negatively impacting their health. These are people who actually experienced relief when leaving an area that was heavily relied on modern technologies, and actually feel physically better, either stop, having migraines every day, or stop having digestive problem, or mental health issue, like any number of things. People can consider themselves EM sensitive. And, I'm not a doctor. I don't do research on EM sensitive people. There are some people who don't believe in it. There are obviously people who do and think that this helps them. And, regardless, they are a large percentage of this town that comes to feel better and to feel healthier. And so we met one of these people, and we were talking to them, very kind, very sweet, very welcoming. But it was just really interesting to gain that perspective, because I had never met someone like that before, obviously, because I always live in a place where modern technologies are very common and very used. And so it was very interesting to meet them, and get to know more about how they interact with the world and how they feel, and what it's like for them living in Green Bank. And so that was kind of just the first day. We met so many people, so many wonderful people, welcoming people in this very, very small town. And so the next day, my parents and my brother left. They went home, and I was there for good for 10 weeks. And so over those 10 weeks, I learned so much more about the community and the town, and really did a lot of things that I never would have gotten the chance to do had I not lived in Green Bank. And so my first concern upon receiving my invitation to go to this program was like, oh my goodness, how off the grid am I actually going to be? It's not as bad as people think. I only lived about a mile from where I worked. I drove most days, but if it was a really beautiful day and there was no rain in the forecast, a group of us would get together and walk, or we'd walk home one afternoon if it was beautiful, and just walk in the morning and leave our car parked there overnight. And so sure, for that 1 mile that I was walking or driving and I didn't have internet connection, yes, I didn't have internet connection. And it was perfectly okay. In the house we lived at, we had Ethernet, like the internet that comes out of the wall. And that was perfectly fine. I could always have my laptop connected. They make Ethernet adapters for your phone, so I could text, and my parents and I made a Facebook Messenger chat. We could Skype, we could FaceTime, we could do all of those things, and so that was easy. We had a Roku box on the TV that we had Netflix and everything on, so that was easy. At work, the same thing. We had internet at work, and so that was easy. We just got to work, did anything we needed on the internet. We needed to do research that required the internet, fine. You needed to contact your parents while you were at work, fine. The internet was there, there was never a problem. Phones, yes, there's no cell service, but there were house phones in the house that we lived at, and landlines also in the building where I worked. And so that was super simple to stay connected. The only time I ever had an issue was my car started acting up maybe about 3/4 of the way through the summer, and luckily one of the people that I was living with had experience as a mechanic, and so he was able to fix my car, but it started acting up when we were actually on the way to a restaurant about 30 minutes away. And we were in 2 separate cars. He was not in the car that I was in. And so me and this other girl literally had to pull over on the side of the road with 3 houses around and figure out what to do. And that was the only moment where I was like, man, cell service would be wonderful right now. But again, as I've mentioned, the people are so sweet. I literally went up to someone's front door, knocked on it, and said, you see my car over there that has some smoke coming off of it. Do you mind if I use your home phone? She said, absolutely not, no problem. She gave me the phone book. I called the restaurant where they were at, and everything got fixed. So it wasn't so bad. Everybody's always so worried, like, oh, what was it like to live there? It was okay. There was internet pretty much any time that I wanted it. Like I said, the only time was when you were driving. And that still wasn't that bad. Sorry, I have a list here that I keep looking at. And so, yeah, so as I mentioned, we had a TV with like Netflix and Amazon Prime TV and all that sort of stuff. And so that was really easy to entertain ourselves. We also had tons of like games and board games to play. There's also like games on the Roku. But we had like card games and board games and things like that. And it was also really great because the people that live in that town are so welcoming. The scientists and their families, as well as just like people who live there that are unrelated to the observatory, are so welcoming and so kind. At least once a week, I'd say, we were at someone's house for a cookout or for a dinner night or for movie night. We did like make your own pizza night. We did so many different things around town and with the other scientists or staff members at the observatory. There was a pool in our yard, or not in our yard, it was in our yard, but obviously it was not like our pool only. It was the town recreation pool, and so, we had that. There was a park also in our front yard, and so it was really easy to stay entertained. But it was also great because if there were those moments where you just wanted to like go on a walk, you could, and you would never get a phone call or a text or anything like that. You wanted to go read outside, you could so easily. You'd never have to worry about traffic or a highway or anything like that. It was always so calm and so quiet and so awesome to just be able to sit there and just enjoy nature and being outside and not have to worry about being connected to your phone. the whole time. And so, shopping. Anytime that we needed to go shopping, like I said, if it wasn't something small like, oh man, we were trying to cook this pasta dinner, but we're one box short, we'll just run down to the general store. Probably every 2 or 3 weeks, I'd say, we would all get in either 1 or 2 cars and drive an hour to the closest Walmart, and we'd stock up and bring it back. And when I mean stock up, I mean like stock up. We would buy like huge, like 10 pounds of ground beef. So we had it to make like burgers and tacos and something else that week maybe. Or, you know, we would buy like tons of like frozen chicken or something random. But it was really great because we were all living together, and so we all got to eat together every day. A lot of us cooked meals together, but you know, it was never like a problem if you didn't want to eat what everybody else was eating. You're just like, oh, you know, I don't really like fill in the blank, mac and cheese, whatever. I'm gonna make this instead. And like, it was great. We still ate together. And that was a really unique experience, to be working with the same people you were living with. And honestly, I really enjoyed it. It was so great because typically when you just work with someone, you get to know a very professional aspect of them. But over that 10 weeks, being able to live and work with them, you get to know such a personal aspect of them as well. And I left Green Bank with several great friends who I'm still in contact with, who, you know, we still text, we still talk, still wish happy birthdays to and things like that. And so that has been really great to be able to have those people and those friends still be involved in my life and my scientific career as well. A lot of the people who like are staff members at Green Bank and work there full time, we're all friends on Facebook. It's great to see them and their pictures and keep up with their life as well, because like I said, they were so welcoming and kind to us, and it really made the summer so special. I loved my time in Green Bank, and I really think it was because of the people that were there. Everyone was just so kind, so welcoming, always ready to help. So the last little part of this video is going to be the actual science that I did during my REU and what it was like actually working at the observatory. So I'll get into this more in a more general, like what is an REU video that I'll do probably very soon. But essentially what was a little bit different from me right from the beginning was nobody's there to like monitor you. It's not like working at McDonald's where you have to like clock in and out of a shift or anything like that. Like, you just come in when you come in and then you leave when you leave. And as long as you get your work done, nobody really minds unless you're like never there. And so that was something that was strange for me right off the bat, was like, oh, okay. You know, there were several days that I woke up early, like I just got up early and I was like, I'll start my day. And I'd go to work, and, you know, all of us had like a back room that was also like the little kitchen, coffee watering hole station. And there were some times that I would be the one to turn on the lights there just because nobody had come in and made their coffee yet. And so there were also times that I would leave at 1 o'clock because I was just having trouble focusing, and I'd come back a couple hours later and just work like 4 to 7 instead of working straight from 1 to 5. And that was a really, really great atmosphere and experience for me to be in, because it really showed me that I am so much more productive and I work a lot better in that type of environment where I can take a break for an hour, I can go exercise for an hour and come back to work. I don't have to just sit down from 9 to 5 and do a job, do one task. And so that was really eye-opening for me and really swayed me towards academia and getting a job eventually in academia so that I could have that flexible work schedule instead of an industry schedule that is more a little bit structured and 9 to 5 type deal. The way that Green Bank the REU is formatted is that pretty much every person has their own mentor. Now, I say pretty much because there are a couple people that are like doubled up if the project is really big. And so that person is responsible for you in terms of your science. And so the person that was responsible for me was an amazing mentor. I learned so much, and was really accessible, and always, wasn't in the office, would respond by email, was in the office, would answer any questions that I had, when I had them, and that was amazing. And so throughout most of the week, our responsibilities included doing actual, research, actual science. Once or twice a week, we would have kind of like these seminar chats, I guess you could call them, where Green Bank, Charlottesville, which is the NREO headquarters, and then the NREO office out in New Mexico, all of us REU students would call in and have these little phone chats about some topic. Like a staff scientist would come in and give a presentation about whatever their research was in. And so that was really cool too, to be able to take a step back from your research and learn something different, but still very pertinent to radio astronomy. And so there's always something you can learn from someone else's research that you're like, oh, maybe I could apply that to my work, or like, I never thought about it that way, or anything like that. And so that was really great to just have that 1 or 2 hours a week to put your research aside, go learn something completely different, and then come back. And that was another great part of my REU. The final thing that is always a good thing is that at the end of 10 weeks, I had to give a presentation on the work that I did that summer. And so the work that I did that summer was on fast radio bursts, which are essentially fast bursts of radio energy from an extragalactic source, so from a galaxy outside of the Milky Way. And at the time, there had only been one repeating fast radio burst known to exist. So we had received detected multiple bursts from the same source, and there had only been one of those. And so my job was to comb through old data from of another source to see if I could detect another repeat burst. And so over the 10 weeks, that's what I did. I found one potential maybe burst, and that was pretty exciting. There was follow-up telescope time that were granted to us to keep doing that science, and so I presented that research at the end of the summer, and then in January I went to Seattle, Washington to present at the AAS meeting, or the American Astronomical Society meeting, and I presented my research there. Yeah, I think that's kind of everything that I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you learned a little bit about what Green Bank is like, what it's like to actually live there and not just pass through. You can never judge a book by its cover. And then learned a little bit about my REU experience there. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave them down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked the content and you liked learning a little bit more about Green Bank and what it was like to live there. And as always, please push that subscribe button so that I can make sure I can keep making videos for you guys. Thanks so much. Bye.